Well, I'm sorry that I didn't get a chance beforehand to look at the entries, and we might want to go through them again just because they're so packed with stuff.
Mm.
Wow.
And there's more.
Oh gosh. Now the work you're doing,
Blown away.
just to help again, give you a sense of where you're at on the field, and you're doing
I
more
feel like
work.
I maybe crossed the 50-yard line, but I still got 50 more yards to go.
Oh, bless your heart. I think you're further than the 50, but it's no, it really, the progress you are making, the work you are doing, it reflects the amount of hours. And I think hopefully I have no doubt this will be your role in the lives of survivors in the future.
I think so too. I
Right?
can't.
The average survivor doesn't devote the time it just comes down to
That's
that,
because
right?
they're too busy watching TV and listening to music and being entertained, and
How
that's
badly do you want it, right? They're
and
distracting themselves.
thank God that Alan taught me, no, get out of that world. All it's doing is programming you.
But you're facing the pain. It really comes down to, okay, am I going to do this or not? Am I all in?
Well, and I remember, before I even started talking to you, this thought crossed through my mind. And Chris sent out this inspirational thing to a lot of people this week, and it was a man who is I believe he's a SEAL right now, maybe even higher. But he was talking about when he was a kid, he was, had a horrible thing. He wound up being 300 pounds, and he saw a thing on TV about SEALs, and he said, you know what, I want to do that. I want to go there. And he changed his life. And so he's giving this inspirational talk.
Well, I think a black guy, the black
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
I saw him
He's
interviewed on a
basically
program.
saying, embrace the suck, right? And so Chris is going on, and he played this inspirational thing 4 times this weekend. And I got to thinking about, I thought, that's what I'm doing, because yeah, it sucks, but I remember early on with those first memories and remembering and thinking, well, at least I'm not in there living it, and I'm just remembering it. And yeah, it sucks, but it's nowhere near what that little girl went through. So if she could handle that, then I can certainly handle this. And that's kind of always been my mindset throughout all of this is, yeah, now my ankle hurts, and yeah, my back is itching and whatever. But I thought that was kind of my way of saying embrace the suck. And it, it's not fun, but we're not there anymore. We're not there. I remember watching, was it Lisa Meister, a few of her videos, and she's talking about how for her, she had young children, and she was remembering, and she said she was curled up in the fetal position in a closet, and it was everything she had to do is crawl out of there and give her kids a piece of bread for lunch. And I thought, the poor thing. I mean, I've never been in that space, and I was like, how do you get there unless you're obviously a part just took over and put you to the side. And I thought, thank God I've got so many parts because they just could jump in and take over. I thought, I mean, I don't want to wish 150 parts on anybody because that means a lot more abuse, but I thought I just keep thank God for all these parts because I'm not a puddled mess in the closet on the floor, unable to function. People take over and just do shit.
Well, I think what you just highlighted is another key part that maybe in the future you'll want to address or speak to.
Yeah, I mean,
You've crossed over the Rubicon in the sense that you're embracing it. For you, it doesn't matter how many numbers, how many parts there
and
are.
when I first
That's a
started,
huge,
I kind of had little limits
right,
because
that's a huge
I
psychological block. Understandably, it's like, well, okay, this many and no more.
right, yeah,
For
and that
fear
means
of
you're
whatever that.
allowing yourself to go to a firewall, and that's
Oh,
it.
there you go.
Okay, that's enough.
There you go.
And
So,
it's the firewall controlling the number.
that'll be a good, important topic for you to cover to help
Or
elect.
gatekeeper, what I, for some reason, firewall is my word now.
That is a good one. Yep. Yep.
I had this realization this morning. I was thinking of, I'm going to put the journal entries to the side for a second because I was working on, oh, let me share, shoot. Share, oops, there it is. I was working on my emotional impact graphs because I kept having a saboteur, a saboteur, a saboteur. And I thought, well, now that I know who the cult members are, Grandma, Grandpa, David,
Yeah.
executioner, and I listed them out and we had a parts puddle. And I remember once I became conscious of that, I went to do the parts puddle and everything was very still and quiet. Things were everybody was nervous. And I was like, well, what's going on here? I don't understand. And somebody says, well, or Knight came and says, he says, well, the cult members are coming around now that nobody's in cages anymore, and they're whispering in ears and they're getting people nervous and scared again.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I can't have that. What am I going to do? And I started thinking about it. I thought, well, okay, let's put a guard on each one of them. As I thought, I'm not going to put them back in their cage, but they need to be watched. I can't have them infiltrating my people. So I came up with a guard for each one. I had volunteers.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, I can't just guard them because that means, it's giving the impression you can't talk.
Sorry.
If you talk, then you get a guard, even though you're out of your cage. So I was like, well, okay, then each one needs a truth teller assigned to it as well. So I thought, okay, you got a guard, you got a truth teller. And I was like, well, but they need the presence of Jesus too. So I was able to figure out who were the Jesus parts. So, okay, each cult member had Jesus, the truth, and a guard. And they're allowed to walk around, but those, their shadows, whatever you want to call them, go with them. So they're not allowed to mess with my people. I see you're not taking their joy away, you're not instilling fear, and you're not none of that business anymore. And then about an hour later, it occurred to me that, well, all the little parts that are not having those jobs are still nervous because look at them. They got three people hovering around them. And what if, somebody's missing and we haven't figured out there's a cult member and whatever. I said, okay, let my animal parts come out. They can sniff it out. They know. So
Yeah.
I got Wolf and Patches and Jerry are all aggressive, protective aggressive. So they're like, we're going to run around the group and make sure we're going to sniff things out in case we miss something. So I'm like, okay. And then all the other little guys, well, they were still nervous. And I thought, well, I've got other animals that are comfort animals and loving and sweet and playful. So they volunteered to go run around to all the non-cult people and make them feel better and give them comfort and bring back their joy and et cetera, et cetera. So they got jobs now for each other. And that hit me. I was like, well, okay, I need to record this somehow. So I did. Um, I guess, well, and that came after what I'm about to show you here. Remember these graphs were wrong and had errors?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I went in to correct them. And I also realized, well, because as I was doing the impact side of it, which is this stuff, right, with your things, I realized a lot of people are in the wrong places. So I had to rearrange them.
Oh, okay.
So after I rearranged them is when I realized, oh, all those things I just told you. So as I'm working on this, I realized there was a saboteur, and that's what made me think about the cult members. It's got to be a cult member.
There we
Right.
go.
And so finally, oh my God, Jon, I must have redone this 8 times, and it just kept happening and happening and happening, and I couldn't remember where this was or that was. Or
Now, when you say, repeat that though, when you say it, so it kept happening. What is
the,
it?
the sabotage, like I could have one graph perfect, copy and paste it, add the data again, but it would get all scrambled up. So
Wow. Okay.
I'm like, what is going on here? And
Yeah.
it kept happening over and over. And so, okay, let's. And when I realized, I was like, okay, well, it keeps happening here in this age group, here in this age group, but this one seems fine.
There we go.
This one seems fine. So I'm like, okay, there's a saboteur in this age range
There we
and
go.
one in this age range. And so that's when I started looking.
So you noticed, so you would adjust what, and then it would be reverted back to what?
Well, like just this, like the ages, instead of the age being in there, the name would be there. Or instead of, someone in a negative, it would go to a positive.
Okay, that's great. Wow.
Even
Wow.
though I would look over here and it would be correct. And I'm like, what is happening? And I would come over here. I guess I'll shrink this a little bit. And because off to the side of these, I'll have to move that. This, oh, that's not right. Oh, here. I almost don't want to touch them anymore. You have this menu here where you
Yeah.
can go around and look and change and adjust and make sure you got it right. And I kept where is this? I couldn't remember. Where is the menu? Where I know I did it right. And I checked, well, this graph is right. Let me see where it is on the right graph. And then I go back and forget. So someone kept blocking my memory.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
finally I realized the sabotage. And I got to thinking back when I did Alan's transcripts from time to time, a transcript would just get wiped out.
Oh,
8, 10, 20 hours of work just disappeared. And I would get so mad. And I thought, well, it's got to be done again. I can't not have it.
oh.
And so I would do it all over again. And I said to that saboteur, I said, do you remember when you did that to me when we were doing transcripts and they didn't respond? I said, do you remember how I handled it? And they didn't answer. I said, okay, you can screw this up 100 times. I'm going to redo it 102 times. You're guaranteed that, motherfucker.
And take screenshots.
And when I did that, all of a sudden it just stopped.
Okay. Okay.
Organizer and Smarty Pants got in there and said, okay, Diana, instead of trying to flip back and forth, we're going to do one at a time. We're going to know exactly where everything is, blah, 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 blah. And so the saboteurs quieted down because they knew they were going to lose. And then my parts came in and said, okay, we know how to do this. And bam, it just happened. I was like, yay. I was so frustrated. And I also recalled what you were talking about. Let me let the dog out. All right, sweetie. All right, my little darling. Go ahead. Oh, now she doesn't want out.
Bless her heart. Okay.
Um, I lost my train of thought. Oh, no,
Oh, about once you were dedicated, I've used the phrase for someone
I
that's
just
going through really difficult stuff, right? It's either I'd rather um, it comes
do
down to
it
this,
102 times.
right?
Figured I had to
So
confront what was going on. Oh, and this is what I was going to say.
yeah.
You were talking about what you do in the bathroom and the kitchen. I was watching one of your shows. And I thought, well, do I do anything in the bathroom and the kitchen? I thought, well, the eye thing, sometimes I scrape a little too hard and I get a little scab. That's not good. I need to soften it up and then just wipe it away. So I thought, okay, well, that's self-harm, which I wasn't willing to recognize. And the scratching I always knew was self-harm, but I don't break skin anymore. But in the kitchen for the past couple of weeks, for some reason, I keep deciding to touch hot things. And I haven't burned myself to the point of a boil or anything. But I was thinking about that. I mean, I have a little air fryer that's more like a toaster oven. You open the door and it's like an easy bake oven,
Yeah.
really. And for some reason, I decided to pull the tray out without an oven mat.
Oh.
And I was like, what the fuck did you just do? And I was like, oh my
Well,
God, and it touched 4 fingers. And I was like, what is happening here? And that's what was alerting me to the self-sabotage.
yeah.
And so the next day is when I was working on this, and so it kind of sunk in. Instead of me brushing it to the side, someone wanted to wake me up and say, look, this is happening. So I was able to go through this and parts got rearranged. They're not in the same order anymore. Things I wasn't willing to look at before, suddenly, oh, duh. But still, I wasn't quite there
Mhm.
until this morning. I realized Angie, Mary, Martha, who was mom, and David, who was dad, now that I see them as parts and not as the humans I interacted with outside of me, I they are parts and they are cult members and they are sabotaging me. And they're critical of me. They're fuck things up for me. They X, Y, and Z. So I removed their original names entirely. And now
Good.
they have their cult names. So I'll go.
Yeah, what, by cult name meaning what?
Well, the name that I said, well, okay, you're a cult member. You're not really my sister Angie. You're the Angie that lives inside of me that was loyal to the cult, which
Yeah.
I need to highlight those. That's what the red is, cult members. So Martha, yeah, it was my mom who was victimized, but after that, she became a different person herself with another part that took over, and that's who took care of me, was that loyal cult member, the one who didn't talk, the one who was drugged, the one who was gaslighted, X, Y, and Z. Now mom came back later in life, and I think there's a part maybe, or I don't know if that's a just something God gave me back, but the part called Martha was loyal to the cult till the end. Dad was the love of her life.
Right.
Even though she listened to God, she listened to her intuition, she was still loyal to the cult. Same with Angie and Mary. Angie, every time I point out something she does that's satanic, she brushes me off in real life. And I'm thinking, well, she does that in real life. What the hell is my part doing in there? You
Yeah.
know? Um, like Angie she wanted to go to a Christmas show where they have an orchestra. It's a heavy metal band orchestra that plays heavy metal band with huge visual stage
The
image
Trans-Siberian,
orchestra. I don't know
yeah.
if you've ever looked it up, but they will play every Christmas song there is with never a mention of Jesus. So they never select a song that has the name Jesus.
Oh, is that right?
Only God, my Lord,
Oh,
whatever. And then and I was very on guard when I went there with her because I know music is deceiving.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm studying this as she's enjoying it and going along. I'm studying it. And so whenever they would say Lord or my God, you'd either see a black hole or screens filled with flames. And I was like, so
Oh,
I know who their Lord is. I know who their God is. And
wow.
or the part where they say the spirit of the season, they
Uh,
put a bookshelf on the screen filled with toys. And I'm studying the different toys, and one is a crane and whatever. And then after like maybe 10 or 15 seconds of that, they doubled and tripled and quadrupled. So you're seeing the joy of the season is nothing but hundreds and thousands of toys on shelves. And I was like, well, they're telling me to go buy shit,
Yeah, yeah.
you know? And so that's what I'm like, this is
Oh,
satanic. And I've mentioned it to her 3 or 4 times. She just will not hear it. So she's a cult member
yeah.
still. And Mary, I call her nickname was Mare, like that, M-A-R. But I
Yeah.
realized no, it's Mare with an E, like a horse. Her curse to be torn bit
Oh, oh, oh,
limb from limb by animals, horses. A horse is a horse of she's Mare, M-A-R-E, like a horse, a mare.
yeah.
So that's the name of the parts. Um, and and Mary is just all about money and getting success and being in that group. She is a cult member. You know, she's a Catholic who goes to church so she can put on the right face and look at me, I do the right thing. But her focus is on money and control and just making everybody else's lives miserable. Period.